Welcome back to Everything Goes, guys. We have a lot planned for tonight, a lot to talk about, but first, we're going to go to a special guest.
It's Elliott! It's picked off! It's picked off! It's Tracy Porter!
All right, so on today's podcast, we have Cameron Lee, former NFL player, joining us. And my first question for you, Cameron, is, when we were doing our research for you, one of the biggest questions I had is, why football? Because when we looked up the research on you, you looked like a pretty good baseball player. Your most home runs, I think it was your high school, most runs batted in.
And basketball.
Yeah, and basketball. You were a great basketball player. So, the biggest question for us was, why did you end up picking football?
When I was a really little kid at a very young age, I decided that my ultimate goal in life was to play professional sport. I didn't really care which one it was. In fact, I would have preferred to have played baseball or basketball. Out of high school, I got some JUCO offers to play baseball and basketball, and basically no football interest. But I had to look at it rationally. What was my long-term goal? And that was to be a professional athlete. So I figured there are about 2 or 3 guys who weigh 300 pounds in the NBA, so that's probably not going to be the best route. And, there are no 300-pounders on the baseball field, maybe Bartolo Colon, but that might be the only one.
Yeah.
And then there's probably 10 300-pound guys on a football field at any given moment. So it just became a game of numbers, and I had to think really rationally and, make some sacrifices and concessions. But ultimately, if being a professional was the game plan, I thought football would be the best route, even if it was the most difficult.
Well, how tall were you coming out of high school?
Between 6'4" and 6'5".
Oh, man. Now, when you were picking football, did the thought in your mind at all, occur like maybe baseball is a safer way to go with so many injuries happening in football?
I really would have liked to have played baseball at that next level. But I hadn't had a ton of exposure to, playing with top-tier competition, and like you said, with some of my stats and my numbers, those are really good. But like I said, I don't know that I was playing that great of players, and I'd never had injuries in my life, knock on wood. And so I guess, I wasn't really afraid of anything like that. And just, like I said, I just did the numbers, crunched the numbers, and just thought, let's give this a shot, and hopefully I'm still – continue to be healthy and be lucky and make football work.
Now, are you in Illinois right now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, Cubs or White Sox?
I've been a White Sox fan. That was my team growing up. There's way more Cubs fans, and I always tend to go against the grain. It's kind of my thing.
All right. Well, we can't talk about the White Sox. You just beat up on our Yankees. Let me ask you a serious question. As far as if you had choices like you did back then, Kyler Murray, perfect example. The A's came out, I guess, either yesterday or today, and they offered him $14 million plus the original signing bonus of $4 million. If you were in his position, what would you do?
Jeez, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because, I was not the best at either sport, let alone one of the best at 2 sports. But I think if I were him, I probably would pursue football just for getting to the highest level faster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know, as this is going to sound odd, it's coming from someone who has literally just said I would rather play baseball than football. But if I'm in his shoes and I'm a top tier guy, the payoffs for the top tier guys are so great and so advantageous. And obviously baseball players get paid more, but he would have to prove himself at that level. If he's, going to get drafted so high, as they say, and be a starting quarterback in the NFL, I think he would already be close to that status, close to that level of security and success. I think I would probably take that route if I were him.
Okay, because the report I saw today, the A's offering him that deal, that would almost put him. I think it's a guaranteed to put him on the 40-man roster. But he wouldn't start with the A's. He'd probably start in AAA.
Right.
My thing with the whole draft is I think Arizona's. I don't think they're going to take him. I mean, after last year taking Rosen and the GM's still there, I think they're kind of playing with that pick so they can eventually trade it. But his projection now, it's all over the place. Now they have like Nick Bosa going number one. So I wonder if he's having second thoughts. I mean, we can't talk for him, obviously, but he's in a great position. But, man, he's got like, what, a week to make up his mind?
Yeah, and that's going to be tough. I can only imagine the amount of stress that he's going to be going through trying to make that decision because, I mean, we all know how tough a lot of these decisions can be to make, and one as important as that, I mean, it's huge.
I think what you said is perfect. I mean, obviously playing ball, in my opinion, would be awesome, especially in the pro level. But if you go with the football route, you're in the pros right away. And let's face it, he could start for one of these teams. You'll be an instant starter. And the minor leagues could be tough, all the traveling. I mean, it just seems better to go with the football.
Well, Cameron, let me ask you this, because you were a professional football player. Is there any rule in place now saying that they can't do both? Because like when I grew up, Deion Sanders did both. Bo Jackson did both. Is there anything in place now that he's not allowed to do that?
Not that I'm aware of. The only thing that I would be concerned about is like if he had anything specifically in his contract or any sort of agreement with the team specifically. But I don't know of any rules that say what you can or cannot do when you're not with the team.
I mean, you see that with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson practices with the Yankees, so I don't see why you couldn't play two sports.
Yeah.
We want to get back to you and football because you did the whole combine experience. How is the combine as far as going there? I mean, Aaron Evans, he educates a little bit, said you're getting interviewed by 32 teams. But how was it for you going in there? I mean, that was a big draft class, especially offensively and defensively. Do you find yourself like starstruck or trying to compete against other people that are doing offensive line drills?
I'll say this much. It was an absolute honor to get to participate in the NFL Combine. And I get the impression that people think that it's a lot of fun. It seems to look like a lot of fun on TV. I've even thought that. But getting there and being in the middle of it, and you look around and you're in competition with some of the greatest athletes on earth, and especially being from a small town and a small school, you're right. You do get a little starstruck, and you do get caught up in all those interviews, and you get caught up in the whole process and the whole experience. But man, it is a tough 4 days, and yeah, I mean, you basically on one hand you're like, hey, you're meeting all these new people, and you want to have fun, and you want to say, hey, you want to introduce yourself and be cool with guys. But at the same time, you also have to remember that this is a job interview, and not just a job interview for any regular old job. This is a job interview for one of the most competitive industries in the world, and it is so intense and so stressful. You're kind of in some regards, you're lucky if you get out of there just fully intact mentally, because it is a stressful 4 days.
Wow.
And there's got to be, a lot of pressure. You've one chance here with all the cameras on you, all the scouts on you. There's got to be a lot of pressure on your shoulders.
Absolutely. There was one drill I remember that I kind of it was like a back pedal, flip your hips kind of drill, and you're supposed to stay on the line, and you're supposed to go like kind of down a straight line, but still turning your hips and still being able to show that you can go back straight. And I got a little off kilter, and they like blew the whistle and brought me back. And I remember thinking like, oh gosh, like that's it. My NFL career is over. I'm so embarrassed.
Well, how does that work as far as the interview process? Do you get interviewed by every team, or is it the people that are interested in looking at you?
So basically, there's formal interviews and there's informal interviews. Formal interviews are set up. So basically, you will receive like a card. It's like basically a speed dating card, and it says you need to be in this interview room at this time, and those are your formal interviews. So those will be with a specific team that has requested you, and you don't know which team it is. You just know that you have to be in that interview room at that time.
Wow.
That's got to be nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah. Some guys wear suits and ties. Some guys wear sweatpants. Some teams have the entire ownership and the GM and the head coach, and some teams just a position coach. You have literally no idea what you're getting into. So, and some guys get, top-tier guys might get a formal interview with all 32 teams. Some guys don't get any. So as far as the formals go, I mean, that you literally just kind of wait in anticipation, and then it's like a mystery box. You open the door, and holy crap, there's, insert coach's name here. So that's wild. And then there's these informal interviews, which is basically like, I mean, the only way I could even describe it is like being on like the trading floor at like the New York Stock Exchange or something. It's
Oh my God.
People are running around like crazy. There's coaches and scouts, and and position coaches and all these people are just running around grabbing players and saying, hey, do you have a minute? And like they will literally take you to a table where they've set up an impromptu interview station, and they will interview you, rapid fire questions. I mean, you might be there for 30 minutes, you might be there for 30 seconds, and they are making assessments on you, they're judging you, they're figuring out everything they can from you. I mean, and literally a split second. It's crazy.
Now, are you by yourself, or do you have your agent with you at all?
No, I was there completely by myself. You know, I met some people while I was there. Like I had a few friends in my position group and guys that I was like checking in with, hey, what time are you going here, and blah 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 and all that stuff. But I didn't know really anyone, and you just kind of wander around and you have to hope that you're on schedule and hope that you're on time. And they say basically if you're late or if you miss something, like you can just go ahead and write yourself off. So you just, I mean, it is crazy.
That is crazy.
Now, are we able to ask you as far as what teams called you in for an interview?
Yeah, I had one formal interview, and it was with the Saints.
That's awesome. My son's smiling now because he's a huge Saints fan.
I'm a big Saints fan, man.
Well, I walked in the door, and I had no idea what to expect, and I got in there, and it was the assistant offensive line coach and, like, the assistant GM and some other guys from, like, ownership and, like, higher-level people, and they put me through – basically, they taught me the like some of the run scheme stuff in like 3 minutes. They said, all right, we're going to teach this to you as fast as we can. We're going to teach you a few plays, and then we're going to talk. And then at the end of the interview, you have to teach it back to us.
Oh my God.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
See, I would have been starstruck. I would have forgot. I probably would have forgot their names.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They want to know, you have to know their names. You have to know the plays, and you have to know their terminology. You can't go, well, I call that a double and they call it a B or what, you know what I mean? Like you have to name it exactly right.
That's got to be tough. I mean, there's so much pressure on you already, and you're just starstruck that being in a room with a team to get an interview, and you're getting so much.
And if you think about it, you've literally been learning other teams' offenses all day.
Now
You've been learning other teams' plays when you do these interviews, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, what was ours? I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Now, I understand that the combine is huge, but let me ask you this. Like, a lot of these guys, especially now, like in college sports, you see like Nick Bosa, he dropped out halfway through the season, said, I'm done with football. I have an injury. I already know I'm going to get drafted high, so I'm not going to play college ball no more this year. You have Kyler Murray who went in there, and he chose basically not to do hardly any drills. Is the combine really even important now? Because, I mean, these coaches and these scouts, they have so much information on players. You have your pro days, Is the combine really important anymore?
I mean, it's hard for me to say because I'm far from the top of any professional football organizations, and I'm not the one making decisions. What I would tell you is that I think that a lot of it is on a person-by-person basis. If you're a guy like me coming from a small school who is fairly unproven, and they literally don't know what I have, I would say, yeah, it's probably pretty important that I get out there and show out. If you're a guy like Kyler Murray or Bosa or anyone who they know is going to project well and have all these great stats, do you really need to see that guy run the 4.3 940? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so some of the stuff, I think it's all on a case-by-case basis. But I also am one to say that I don't know that all of the drills are totally applicable. I think a lot of it's just kind of, for show. But
it's almost like to break you.
Yeah, that's it. It's as much of a mental test as it is a physical test. But I think they just want to see how you respond. And a lot, if that's the way you pass the test is to prove that you can survive this week, then then in the organization's eyes that might be important.
Now speaking of the 40, I feel like the 40 is one of the biggest things they show nowadays. I feel like when you're waiting at that line, there's a lot of pressure because if you mess up, they blow the whistle at you. A lot of people are
the coaches seem strict.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's super strict. It's so funny because they line you all up, and I mean I'm out there with just offensive linemen. We're just these enormous dudes standing in our underwear on live television, and we're running, and this the camera on the wire is chasing you, and I'm running away from the camera at this point. It's just like, get away from me. I don't want to be seen. I don't want anyone to see me. Leave me alone. Oh man, yeah, it's so stressful.
Now you have to go through a whole physical and everything.
It's not a physical, it's a day's worth of physicals.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's an entire medical day. And so the way that the medical portion worked is they split the teams up into like groups of 5 or 6 so that you can be evaluated by 5 or 6 teams at one time rather than having to do 32 individual interviews. And so you go and you have to do all those different groups so every team can get a medical evaluation on you. And you go and you go from room to room because each of the groups has set up their own little room, and you're walking around Lucas Oil Stadium basically in your underwear, going from room to room, and they set you down on the table, and they just start poking and prodding at you and pulling on your limbs and saying, oh, that doesn't seem right. Is that okay? Does that feel good? I mean, it's really that crazy. And like I said, I've been very fortunate to be as healthy as I am.
Yeah.
And I was so healthy at the time that the teams didn't believe me. And so I'm not exaggerating. This medical examination process was 4.5 to 5 hours.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I mean, so that sucked. But then on top of that, they didn't believe that I was as healthy as the evaluation said I was. So 2 teams ordered MRIs on me, which took an extra 2 hours out of my
God.
super hectic day just because they didn't believe I was really that healthy.
Wow. Now, if they find something wrong with you, can you not participate in the combine?
No, if it's serious enough, you won't participate. But if you have something that's that something that bad that it shows up on one of their physicals or on one of their evaluations, I mean, that's just like a demerit on your permanent record. I mean, they're going to hold that against you, or so that could be the difference between being drafted or being an undrafted free agent. I mean, it's crazy.
Now, when you went into the draft, did you have to tell them whether you're playing guard or if you're playing right tackle? Because you played both in college, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a guard primarily, and then bounced out to tackle for some personnel reasons near the end of my senior year.
How tough is that?
The transition?
Yeah.
Honestly, not tough, at least not at that level. I always thought I was qualified to play tackle because I always considered myself to be pretty athletic, but I was also one of the bigger, heavier dudes, and we tried to put our interior guys, the bulkier guys on the interior at Illinois State. So, but the transition was fine. But as far as entering into the draft, I mean, I told everyone, the scouts, everyone's asking, what positions can you play? What are you most comfortable with? I told everyone I was a 5-position guy, center, guard, tackle on both sides. And honestly, that's probably a bit of an exaggeration. I hadn't really done that much snapping to that point, but you got to do what you can do to make yourself as marketable as possible. So, I said I can do it all. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what is it like as far as the draft process, as far as waiting for a phone call and you're watching the rounds go by? Can you take us through that draft process?
Yeah, I mean, I was someone who I knew I wasn't going to get drafted on the first day, and I knew realistically where my range was. I had been told from different organizations and my agent and all the databases that I was a fifth to undrafted guy, and I knew that. But I had heard from some teams, and they said we're interested in you. So actually, I mean, the first night of the draft, this is kind of funny. The very first night of the draft, when it's like only the first round or whatever, I didn't even watch it. I was at a Garth Brooks concert. Yeah, so when Garth comes to town, it doesn't really matter. You have to go see him. But the next 2 days, I kind of followed along and paid attention or whatever. And it's weird because as a fan, you watch the draft and you can only imagine what the guys are going through, just waiting to hear their name called. And it's really weird when you're the guy getting you're getting these phone calls throughout the draft. And so, as the later rounds started to come up, I would start getting phone calls from teams and coaches. I'm getting all these text messages from these numbers I don't have, and people are saying, "Hey, we're considering you in the 5th. We're considering you in the 6th. Hold tight," and all this stuff. And you're just, your mind is racing because you're like, well, what's going to happen? Where am I going to go? What's my life going to be like?
I think that would drive me absolutely bonkers,
yeah,
man.
It's got to be frustrating, especially when you're getting the calls and then nothing happens.
Let me ask you real quick about that. You said how they analyzed you and they had a breakdown of you and everything like that. Doesn't that piss you off to a sense? Because in college you play great, And like, what are they analyzing you off of your combine?
I guess. I mean, I don't know. That's the kind of the funniest part about that I found in my experience in the NFL is that it's almost, I don't want to say personal, but there's like so much being evaluated. Sometimes I was kind of even left in the dark, like what am I doing wrong? What, there were things and elements and times where I was just like, I really don't know what I did wrong or what I need to do better. Obviously, I'm not saying that I'm some like I'm no all-pro guy, but there were just times where I really didn't know what was the difference, and I think a lot of it's just personality or fit or gel or the way like an organization thinks of you. I mean, sometimes it just seemed almost personal.
Well, if they want to do the combine right, then what they ought to do is they ought to throw pads on you guys and let you go at it. Then they can actually see how you work with somebody hitting you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is it's kind of like a talent show, but you're not going against anyone. It's hard to really get a feel for it. Anyone can look good. Running around in their underwear.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of guys you hear about that have a horrible combine, and then they go to the pro day where they're more comfortable, and they shine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, and I think that might even be part of the evaluation, though, is how do you handle these lights?
Yeah.
It's a huge stage.
Now, what was it like when you finally get that call, after the draft, the Saints call you, and you know that you have a chance now to make the NFL?
Yeah, so and the moment the draft ended, it was crazy because, I went from having a text message here, a text message there, a phone call here, a phone call there, to all of a sudden I got six offers from like that, from different teams to be an undrafted free agent. And it was just like, I mean, what am I going to do, And so they basically say, all right, we'll give you a little bit of time. And that little bit of time to make an enormous life decision is like 30 minutes.
Now, are you able to tell us what teams offered you?
Yeah, I mean, I figure at this point I'm retired, and it was 2 years ago, so I don't think anyone's going to be too upset. But, yeah, so and this is from what I remember, because like I said, it was a crazy time. But I'm pretty sure it was obviously the Saints and the Bears, the Jets, the Seahawks, the Colts, and maybe one other. I blanking 5 or 6 teams. So.
Yeah. Now, how do you make that decision as far as where you're going to fit in?
Yeah, so I got on the phone with my agent. My agent is the one taking the offers. I'm just hearing which teams are interested. I'm not really hearing what the contract would entail and what I'm being offered.
I would have went to the worst offensive team that year.
Yeah. Well, so my agent basically, he called me up and he said, hey, you got these 5 or 6 teams, whatever, that are interested. Here's the 2 that I would take the most seriously. And they were the Saints and the Bears. The Saints were the only team that had me for a formal interview, which I thought was a good sign. And the Bears were the only team that hosted me for an official visit, which I thought was another good sign. So obviously they were 2 teams that were fairly interested in me. And so I'm looking at both of the offers. Monetarily, they were pretty similar. So then I looked at the teams, I looked at their offensive lines, and, not being, I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm a football fan, and maybe it's just because I'm from Illinois. So like I obviously knowing Kyle Long and knowing Josh Sitton and knowing that I'm considered an interior offensive lineman and obviously Cody Whitehair, I thought the Bears offensive line interior wise was pretty solidified. Whether or not they were going to be a great team, I didn't know, but I wanted to find the spot where I thought I had the best chance of making the team.
Yeah.
Now that's obviously comes with me being pretty naive because I got to New Orleans, who I ultimately made the decision, and that interior offensive line was awesome. But I didn't know, and that's kind of the crazy part about this whole thing is I don't know. I didn't meet the guys. I didn't have a depth chart. I mean, I could look at the depth chart online, but basically I made a decision on a whim. Hey, the Saints offensive line doesn't look quite as good on the inside as the Bears. Maybe I'll go there. And I made that decision in, I mean, really 15 minutes. And that was it. That's how my life took off.
That's
now,
awesome.
when you get there, how much time do you actually get, like, to get reps with the ones, or do they just say, no, you're automatically a backup and this is where you're going to be?
So I got down there a few weeks later because teams start. There's like 2 different periods for when rookies report. One half the league reports 1 week before the other one. So we were in the second group, and then we get down there, and there's basically a few days of like sort of, hey, rookies, catch up. Kind of like an orientation phase. learning the offense, working with the team, working with the coaches and staff, and then they kind of evaluate you and throw you out there and say, and look at you and try to get a gauge on where you stand. And so, some of the rookies jumped in with, some of the top tier guys immediately. So I was not one of those guys, but not many of us were. So I jumped in there and did my best and, started getting evaluated, but I was not playing my best ball, and I was not in the best frame of mind when I was in New Orleans.
When you were in New Orleans, do you see any of the starters at all? Like, did you see Drew Brees? Did you see
Oh yeah, I mean, I was part. I mean, there's no way to be like halfway on the team or halfway in the NFL. When you're there, you're there. Whether you're practice squad or whether you're undrafted free agent or a superstar, that's all the same. And it was very cool, especially being my first stop of my career, getting there and like really getting to meet the guys and being around, players of such caliber. I mean, and that was part of the reason why I chose New Orleans also, is just that, they had recently signed Adrian Peterson and Drew Brees was there. And I mean, like, this team was just, there were some guys that were just, wow, I can't believe I'm even in the same place as these guys, let alone they're my teammates. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say I really got to know anyone. I wasn't there long enough, and I didn't have the guts to even talk to anyone at the time. Sometimes you're just a scared rookie. And so, but yeah, I mean, I got to be teammates with Drew Brees and some of those guys. It was very, very, very cool experience.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Now, let me ask you this, Cameron. Unfortunately, things didn't work out in New Orleans. Did they call you in, and are they just like cold-hearted, say, you know what, you didn't make the team, here's your ticket, you're going home? Or
so
getting
cut's an interesting experience. You eventually get used to it. I've been cut several times in my life, so each team handles it a little differently. It's always funny though, because when that day is going to come, you kind of know, you can feel it. And so I had reached the point during I believe it was mini camp, just at the end of OTAs. There's the mini camp at the end of OTAs with the Saints, where I saw that they were bringing in new offensive linemen quite frequently, and they had cut the guys that came in with me, the undrafted free agent offensive linemen. I believe there was 6 of us at the start of camp, at the start of rookie minicamp, and I was the 4th one cut. So,
wow.
I mean, guys were getting cut left and right, and keep in mind, I only made it there 6 weeks. So guys were getting cut every single week. And so when you see that, you see guys kind of going down left and right, and you're like, okay, the writing's on the wall. Who knows how long this is going to end up working out. But, yeah, the process with them was basically we had that mini camp at the end of OTAs, which is basically like, hey, this is the end of summer, and then come back ready for training camp. So it was kind of like a, hey, you made it this far kind of thing. And but I had a terrible camp. Like I said, I was not emotionally, mentally prepared to be there, honestly.
Yeah. I
was not in good space, and I actually had kind of hurt my shoulder while I was there, and camp went really bad for me. And so at the end of it, one of the junior guys on the staff upstairs came and found me in the locker room, and he said, hey, Coach Pate, good to see you. And anytime, I promise you, anytime the head coach see you, it's not good. So he called me into his office, and he said, hey, Cameron, we appreciate your efforts this summer. You're a good football player. Just, there are some things you need to work on. Don't give up. Don't quit. Just keep working hard. But, good luck to you down the road. So it's just like that, and, you move on.
So then you go through the waiver process then, right? You become a free agent again, and
yes,
if they wanted to, they could pick you back up and put you on the practice squad.
Right, that's right. So you go through the waiver process, and when you clear waivers, then you're free to be signed by anyone if someone should be interested.
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, you got cut, but I got to tell you, man, what you went through, it's still interesting, and you've made it further than millions of people would ever make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's the unfortunate side of the NFL. It is a business in the end of the day.
Yeah, and I just don't know that enough people understand that. It's just being, just a casual football fan. You just watch the game and enjoy it for what it is on Sundays, just kind of an escape or just a way to entertain yourself and have fun or whatever. But I mean, it's people's livelihoods, and it's when you look at it and think of it like that, it kind of changes the perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That had to be, cool though. Especially the Bears part. You get picked up by the Bears, and you I believe you played 2 games, right? One was on Christmas Eve.
Yep, you got to play in the final 2 games of the season in 2017.
Now, how was that? Knowing maybe I have a chance here. I'm playing. Mitchell Trubisky's the quarterback. It's Christmas Eve. I'm starting. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly getting to make my debut on that Christmas Eve day in the middle of a snowstorm at Soldier Field with my family in the stands.
That's awesome.
Awesome, man.
For my home state team, I mean, like, honestly, I get goosebumps every time I even think about it. It's one of the coolest, probably the coolest experience of my lifetime. I mean, words are hard to come by when I even think of it, but that whole year was just, honestly, I guess what is so cool about it, or so important about it for me, is that I worked so hard from the day I made that decision as a very young kid to be a professional athlete, no matter what it took. To go into a small school and play in 3 sports, and going to Illinois State University as a walk-on and earning a scholarship after 3 years or whatever on the team, and then being a practice squad player and earning a spot, and then finally getting on the field. Like, it was just validation for all that effort,
Yeah, and no one could ever take that away from you.
Right. It just felt like, hey, man, these last 17, 18 years of your life and all the effort, like that, it felt like kind of like my life's work was just, it meant something.
And that's awesome that it was your home team. You had the NFL roller coaster, but then you had that chance to start. It's on Christmas Eve. Your family's there. Like that's awesome for you, man.
Yeah, it was really, the opportunity of a lifetime.
Now, we don't want to hold you up. You still have time for a few more questions?
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. As far as, the things with the Bears, are you still – you're not with them, obviously, but – and you say you're retired, but are you still in good ties with them where if something happened, they can call you back?
I'm in good ties in terms of relationships, but I am not physically prepared to play in the NFL anymore. I have since moved on, and I'm happy with that. I'm at peace with that decision. I think I've kind of expressed this throughout this that, I loved my opportunity to play in the NFL. I loved getting to play football and the relationships that I've been able to build and the experiences that I've been able to have throughout the game. But at the end of the day, football may be my 4th favorite sport, and it is the most time-consuming thing I've ever done. It has taken me away from friends and family, and although the opportunities were amazing, it is I'm not sure that the stress that I ended up putting on myself and the mental strain that I ended up putting on myself was worth it. And so I've since lost a bunch of weight, and I'm in a different body and a different mindset.
So now you're a tight end now.
Well, then I'm good. I might be tight end size, but I'm gonna have to run a lot faster than that 5.4 when I ran the combine.
Well, where I was going with this whole thing was, the whole AAF thing that didn't work out. That whole thing fell apart. But there is the XFL coming up in I think February of 2020. Mm-hmm. And Vince McMahon, the businessman that he is, he's already invested $500 million into that, and I guess they have three years already scheduled. So I was going to lean towards that. Would you prepare yourself, since you have enough time, to get back in shape and possibly have the opportunity to play again with a team like in the XFL?
If a team came to me and said, we're interested in you, I'd be flattered, and I'd probably think about it for a brief second, but I don't think so. Like I said, I've come to peace with the fact that my playing days are behind me. I'm in a better place mentally, and I'm happy.
I think that's all that matters at the end of the day. I am curious, though. What is your favorite sport? You said football is your 4th favorite. What is your favorite?
This is people kind of think I'm crazy when I say this. Have you guys seen Spikeball?
I have. I haven't watched it, but I know what it is.
I am a humongous advocate for Spikeball. Every NFL team I played for, I brought my net into the locker room and showed other players how to play. So I used to play with Mitch. I used to play against Trubisky in Chicago. I played against Flacco in Baltimore. Spikeball, I would say, is honestly probably my favorite sport. But more mainstream, I I play pickup basketball 4 to 5 days a week. It is my absolute. It's my outlet. It's one of the things that I do to lose weight and exercise. But it is so much fun for me. And then obviously, I fell in love at a very young age with the game of baseball, and chicks dig the long ball. So I think the fences.
Now, you just mentioned some big names there, so we're going to have to hit you up for some plugs to get those big names.
we could use some people on this podcast.
Let me ask you this. As far as playing offensive line goes, you hear about people getting concussions all the time, the receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks. How often do you guys get concussions? Because you know what? You guys are getting hit by guys running full speed, like the linebackers running up. Mm-hmm. Does that happen frequently with the offensive linemen?
I think there's a couple of ways to think about that. First of all, offensive linemen are of a different mindset than most position groups. Honestly, if an offensive lineman got hurt, there's a very good chance you wouldn't even know. That's just kind of the attitude that is a qualification for the position. If you're someone who gets hurt and talks about it and can't play through it, you're probably not playing that position. So that's one way of just kind of like thinking about that. But also, I mean, obviously, we do take hits. The way I look at it, though, offensive linemen tend to take more hits at less impact. You know what I mean? Whereas like a running back or a wide receiver may get the ball and they may get slaughtered, but we're more of like a repetitive, slap to the head from a D lineman. You might catch that downhill linebacker, but for the most part, you're not getting the crushing blows. And if you're doing your job as an offensive lineman, your head shouldn't be involved too frequently, especially in pass protection. So I never had what I would call a concussion playing football. The only concussion I have documented was playing high school basketball. That's not to say that I didn't, get hit in the head. I'm sure there were times that I probably should have talked to a doctor that I didn't. But like I said, that was just my mindset in the position. That's not to say that other position groups whine more than us. I'm just saying they do.
Now, we're going to ask you the same question we asked Aaron Evans about, now you have your own podcast, so you do a lot of reportings and stuff too. Mm-hmm. How do you feel, not as a player, but as a person who like reports on the game, how do you feel the way these contracts are going now with these guys, the way they're getting paid, and how does that affect the team? Like when you see a quarterback like Russell Wilson getting $140 million over 4 years,
160, wasn't it?
And it's like 101 guaranteed. Do other players like sit back like, yep, we're not going to Super Bowl because now we can't afford anybody else?
Yeah, it is an interesting position to put your team in. It's like we said, when you view the game as a business and not just a game, it really changes it. And yeah, I mean, as a player, I didn't look at Joe Flacco and go, oh, his $100 million deal or whatever is the reason we're not going to win a Super Bowl or anything like that. But you're right, it is kind of interesting the way that's definitely going to impact the team, and you obviously just kind of have to learn to work around it. But I mean, I never felt like a sense of like resentment or frustration or anything like that from a player-to-player, peer-to-peer standpoint. But it definitely has its impact on the game and on the team, but never like on a personal level.
So it never slipped your mind like, man, this quarterback's making a lot more money than me, and I work hard to protect his butt, so maybe I'll just miss this block?
I mean, yeah, there obviously, like, there's discrepancy, and guys at the bottom and guys at the top get huge different numbers, but I don't know, it's just kind of the way of the business, and it's kind of the way of America, that the guys at the top are going to make it, and the guys at the bottom are going to not barely get by, but comparatively to a starting quarterback in the NFL, the salaries are going to be very different. But like I said, I mean, I was always of the impression that if I worked hard and did everything the right way, that I eventually would catch on and someone would appreciate me, and I'd have the largest contract in NFL history one day. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but that was the mindset I had to have. And I think in a competitive arena, in a competitive industry like professional football, everyone adopts that mindset, so no one's going to complain when someone else gets theirs, if that makes sense.
Well, you know what stinks? Because like I listen to 105.3, The Fan out of Texas, and today they were talking, they had Stephen Jones on. Mm-hmm. And the thing that stinks is now Russell Wilson's going to be making $35 million a year. And now you have guys coming up, like you have Dak coming up, you have Wentz coming up, and you have Goff coming up. And it's no longer about what have they done for us. It's now, well, this guy's making this much money, so I should be somewhere around here. And they're saying someone like Dak is going to be making around $30 million.
Yeah.
And it's kind of odd because he really hasn't done anything. And guys like Wentz, who hasn't played a full season yet, are going to be making all this money just because of what somebody else is making.
Yeah, that's kind of the comparative nature of it. When we start looking around and saying, this is what I deserve because that's what that guy got. I mean, I don't know that that's sound logic when building a team. But also, if that's what your quarterback wants, teams are probably going to pay him that. I don't really know where we go from here or how we handle that. It's an interesting situation, but as long as, guys continue to want and ask for more money, I mean, and they have the right to ask for more money. I don't think there's anything wrong with guys trying to get paid. But
oh, absolutely not.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, it could, like we brought it before, it could end up, making you, hurting your team or hurting your standing, in terms of having success. So it's an interesting situation.
When you look at every position that's on the field now, especially on the defensive side of the ball, your defensive ends, now they're being categorized whether they're in a 4-3 or whether they're in a 3-4. And, all these safeties that got signed this offseason, they range from anywhere from, $12 million to $14 million. Now you have corners who are shutdown corners that are barely making $6 million. So now you know what's going to happen. Their market's going to now go up.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird watching the economics of the position groups and watching the economics of just football in general and how the market is set by who's been paid recently and who's not been paid and what's this guy worth, and he's going to drive up the whole market. It's fascinating.
Go ahead. Ty wants to ask a question. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't asking about his podcast, but no, if you know,
no, I have one more question. Then we'll ask him about his podcast. You know what? I remember, I'm a diehard Cowboys fan, and I remember, back in my time, guys played their contract almost all the way out. You never saw these extensions. You never saw guys 2 years into a 5-year deal saying, I want an extension or I want more money. I think these NFL players have too much power. You know what I mean? They get so much money where they can opt to pull Le'Veon Bell and sit out a year and pass up, $14, $15 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes both ways. Obviously, in some regards, I think that's petty. I don't think anyone should do that. If you have a contract, you should play your contract. That's your obligation. But that's just the way I was raised, and that's just the way I always think.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, and obviously it's a different sport, but you see guys like in the NBA, like Isaiah Thomas, try and go out there and soldier through injuries and end up ultimately costing themselves money when they play, and try and do too much and get hurt, and now they'll never get paid again. So, in that regard, I don't, on one hand, I just don't know how to feel about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, whatever happened to the incentive-based contracts where, you go out, you get 10 sacks, you get a bonus. You work 15 games, you get a bonus. I think the whole problem is all this guaranteed money. I mean, you guarantee a guy money in college who's coming to pro who hasn't played one game in the NFL who could get hurt in OTAs.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of the way it's going to go. And guys are going to continue to push for those guaranteed contracts. I mean, and again, I being one of those guys, I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Going to want and try to get their money. But, yeah, it puts the teams in an interesting position. It puts ownership and GMs in a tough spot.
All right, I want to ask you one more question about football, and then I'll let Ty chime in. The whole AAF, did you think that was a good idea to have a minor league system for these guys who are on the practice squads, or can I always have somewhere to go play instead of sitting around and not getting the opportunity to prove themselves?
Yeah, I thought it was an awesome opportunity and an awesome idea, especially being someone who was part of it briefly. I thought it was really cool that they wanted to give more guys an opportunity to play because, I went from being a guy, and like I said, I was no superstar, but I went from being a guy who was playing in the last 2 games of an NFL regular season to, just based on interesting circumstances, being out of a job. And, that's, partially on me. I should have been, I guess, better. But at the same time, I think that's kind of proof of there's many talented players. There's definitely more talented players than there are available roster spots.
Absolutely.
So that means there's a market for it, at least in terms of on the playing side. They're going to be able to fill out rosters. And if you watch some of the games, if you followed some of the teams, like there were good players out there. There were players that deserved to be in the NFL.
They were filling seats.
Yeah. I mean, they were able to do that. But I mean, from the business side, I'm no businessman. I'm not sure how it was supposed to work out, and I don't know what it is or why it is they weren't able to get enough money or whatever to make it work. But I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was a cool idea to get more people involved and get more people more chances to play, because I will always be in favor of getting more people the opportunity to fulfill their dreams.
And that's what we talked about too, because you see like baseball and basketball, they have a minor league system, so why can't the NFL have a minor league system? Because like you said, it did work. A lot of those players are in the NFL now.
Yeah, they said, I believe it was like something like 50 guys have already been signed to NFL teams. I mean, I have friends who got back in the league. It was an awesome chance for them to get back to an NFL roster and get back to that lifestyle and life that they've just been pursuing for their whole lives. So, like I said, anything where you're getting a chance and giving guys a chance to do something as cool as playing the NFL, I mean, like, of course, give those guys a chance.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That NFL season has to be a grind, though. I mean, they say it's only, 16 games or something like that? It's got to be a grind.
Oh, yeah, it's an absolute grind. It's crazy because it's one of those things where it's like in the moment, the days feel so long, but the time flies by so fast. Like, I mean, I've been out of the league for over a season now. I've retired from professional sports, and I still can't believe that it was even my rookie season.
It just goes so quick.
It goes so fast, and I guess that's part of just growing up. But when you're in that time and in that place and in that competitive atmosphere, and you're just trying to survive day to day, and yeah, it goes by so fast.
All right, before we let you go, you also have a podcast too, right? It's called Everything Else?
Yeah, Everything Else. Started that up last season.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure to put your link in our description and see if we can get you some support.
Thank you.
No problem. It's funny because when we saw your podcast, I was like, that's so crazy because our podcast is called Everything Goes with a Z, and yours is Everything Else.
Yeah, I bounced around different ideas of what I would call my podcast and what the idea of it would be for a very long time, and that was the name we ended up deciding on just because the premise is that, although it's sports people, it's not necessarily about sports, so I try and bring on guys and let them talk about whatever they've got on their mind or whatever that's going on in the world, just because, I've gotten to know so many great people in the NFL and so many great people in professional sports, and they're more than just athletes. They're human beings with real funny things to say and real interests, and so I just wanted to give guys a platform to do that.
That's awesome.
Well, I tell you what, you gave us a big platform tonight because you gave us so much insight on the NFL, and there's a lot of people in the NFL where they really don't want to talk much about it, but you and Aaron Evans, I tell you what, you've given us so much information, and it's educational for all of us.
Well, I'm happy to do it. Just because, like I said, when I was a player, I felt like you're just supposed to be a robot. You're supposed to be a robot. That's the way the league wants you to be. That's the way the public wants you to be. And like I said, guys have personalities. We get mad. We have bad days. We have interests outside of football, and I'm happy to shed light and share my experiences with anyone that's willing to listen.
All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure. We hope to, maybe have you on again one day.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be about football. We could just talk about something else.
Absolutely. You name anything. I'm pretty well versed in a lot of weird categories. So.
Well, we hope everything works out with your podcast, man. It's been awesome to have you on and share your knowledge with us.
Hey, I'm happy to do it. Feel free to get a hold of me, and we can do this anytime.
I heard you say you had Kyle Long on. The chances of you getting him on our podcast would be awesome. I'm just messing with you. But no, for real, it's been a pleasure, and we'll definitely stay in touch with you.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Cameron. Have a great night.
Have a good one.
All right, bye.
What a great interview. I mean, to get the insight of the NFL, the whole process, and, we have just been blessed with these last 3 podcasts that we've done with the Texas Tech podcast, Aaron Evans, and now Cameron Lee. It's just amazing.
It was just really cool, especially to get the inside of what goes on the combine, especially when he told us how, like, when you get an invite to, a formal invite and you have no idea who it's going to be, and then they hit you with all their knowledge and you have to learn it and give it back to them. There's so much pressure and nerves going on at the combine.
I'd fail that.
I would have failed it too, because I'd be so, awestruck at the fact that I'm in a room with a team and I was just at the combine, and now they're telling me their plays, and I got to replay it to them. It would just be too much for me.
I mean, like, if I was in that room and Jerry Jones walked in, I probably would fall off the chair. I would probably pass out.
You know what I wanted to ask him when he said, Sean Payton called him? I would have been like if that was me, I'd be like, listen, I know you're cutting me right now, but, like, it's nice to meet you.
Shake his hand. But, I'm glad that he got the chance. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that try. Their dream is to get to the NFL. And
he started 2 games. I mean, it's better than
than nothing.
Yeah, he's an NFL player, and that was cool.
I would love to do this again with him and talk other things. It doesn't have to just be. I mean, he's just a nice guy, down to earth guy.
Yeah, he's really nice.
To do this and talk about his podcast and talk about other things, it'd be awesome. It'd be amazing. Oh, I see the Yankees are beating Boston. Finally, the Yankees are doing something proper. They're up 4-0.
They officially hit the injury bug again, though, with Greg Bird.
Yeah, which
was it plantar fasciitis in his left foot? I think I saw.
They said he has a tear in there.
There's always something with him.
He's going to be in a boot for 10 days.
I think still the highlight to talk about is Christian Yelich still hitting home runs. He hit 3 home runs the other game.
Yeah, he's
just tearing it up.
A beast.
And it's so crazy because he's so tiny. He's not even a big guy.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to change as far as some of these divisions because
it's cool that Seattle's still doing so good.
Yeah, but Houston just jumped ahead of them.
But Yasiel Puig hit his first home run. It was actually, and then he
off Kershaw, right?
No. But he went back to L.A. and he had a home run there too, which was just cool because
I thought he hit one off of Kershaw.
Oh, I'm not too sure on that. But
there's just so much amazing things that are going on right now. I mean, with the podcast, Tiger Woods won the Open the other day.
That's right, he did.
He
looked good too.
They looked like crap on was it Sunday, and then yesterday they looked great. Or Saturday they played.
And then you have Chris Davis finally gets his
broke
first
his
hit,
streak,
and then he hits a home run. I'm not gonna lie. So many people when I said I feel bad for the guy, they were like, "You shouldn't feel bad. He's making millions of dollars." I get that, but when you have so much pressure like that on you, it's rough.
Yeah,
I feel bad.
Baltimore's beating the Rays right now.
Dude, but that's we called that. The Rays are a team to watch, and they're 12-4. They're ranked number 2 in MLB rankings.
They're 6 games up on second place. That's what I mean. Something's got to change between the Yankees and Boston. Someone's gonna get hot, but Chris Davis must have did well because he got a day off today. A lot of big things going on in sports, man. I'm just excited.
One thing that I like that we talked about way in the offseason, I said that this was going to be the year Josh Donaldson's have a good year. And he got his first home run the other day, and then he hit another one the next game. And he's slowly starting to look – and he's making really good plays in the infield too. He's really starting to look like his old MVP self, which it's awesome to watch.
Did he sign a 1-year deal down there?
I believe it was just a 1-year deal. Because we talked about how this is going to be his year to see if he can get another, not max contract, obviously, but like a 2 or 3 year deal. But I'm rooting for him. I hope he does really well.
Yeah, if you look at the standings, man, I tell you, Tampa Bay, they're losing tonight, but they got a 5-game lead over Baltimore, the Yankees, 6 over Boston, and 6 over Toronto. And then Houston, they're in the dogfight now. I mean, there's only 3.5 games separates last place from the Mariners, so that division's wide open.
Yeah.
And keep an eye on that National League East.
Yeah.
The Phillies, the Braves, and the Mets all right there. The Nationals only 2 games out.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about was when we were talking about the Russell Wilson deal, that basically eliminates all of the Giants talk that we were talking about that one podcast.
Yeah.
But it was cool because Russell Wilson gave them a deadline. He gave them a date and said, "This is the date that you have to give me a deal, or else I'm going to leave," which is kind of cool. You never really see that, and he got a lot. He's making more than Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, I don't think he was going to leave. I think he had 1 year left, so he was going to.
Not like leave. He wasn't going to.
He wasn't going to sign
pursue
an
those contract
with them
extensions.
And he would have ended up leaving last year. But his deal is loaded. I mean, I think it's $101 million guaranteed.
And I think what shocked everybody last year was that a lot of people left Seattle. You had Richard Sherman leave. Earl Thomas wanted out of there. But yet they shocked a lot of people.
But you know what's crazy? It's only a 4-year deal. So in 2023, he can go get another contract. He'll only be in his mid-30s.
And quarterbacks in this league typically last till their 40s.
Yeah.
He can get another max deal.
I don't know if he'll get a max deal, but he'll get another deal, so he'll be making good money. He'll get all that 140, and then he'll get another deal. But the problem is how I don't know what their cap situation is. Are they going to be able to sign other players to go with them on that?
It was cool when
their whole defense is gutted, really.
Yeah, but their defense is so young, and they performed well last year. One thing that I thought was cool when Cameron was talking was when he was talking about spike ball and how he plays with Joe Flacco and Trubisky. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. I've never heard of that, so I don't know what it is. You would have to educate me on that.
One thing I wanted to ask him was, as a lineman, what's the feeling when you get beat bad and you turn around, you see your guy you're supposed to be blocking, sacking your quarterback?
Yeah, I wanted to ask him
to ask that, but I forgot. Because you were getting way off into the AF, and I was like, I don't want to bring it up now. But, not even, to rub in his face, because you see that on TV, and, it's got to be a sucky feeling knowing you got beat bad.
What happens if your assignment is to block this guy and someone blitzes?
Yeah.
Do you, let's let him go and say, you know what, that's the running back's job.
And then, you get it from the coach, too, you know what I mean? You get yelled at by the coach. That's funny, though. You're sitting on the line, you see two guys, oh, God.
Which one do I grab?
Which one do I grab? I'm just going to let this one go, get this one.
Yeah. It was a great interview, and you know what? I hope this starts to take off. I mean, we have another guy we're waiting for him to call us back, and he plays with the NFL team at this time. So things are going in the right direction. You know what I wanted to talk about, too? How about that elbow that Embiid gave to that kid last night? It was insane. They called it a flagrant one, but I tell you what, the amazing thing about that whole thing is that kid has a hell of a chin. He looked like he was in a boxing match, and his head got slapped back so freaking hard. And it was amazing that he took that.
And then you had the Clippers. They beat the Golden State, and that was upsetting a lot of people.
Yeah,
which is cool. I love it because the competition in that game right now is going off between KD and that other guy who I can't think of his name right now.
Boogie Cousins is out too.
I saw that. I saw that. It was like a tear, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's done. He's going to be out. And how about Toronto lost? Denver lost. A lot of big games tonight. Orlando and Toronto, San Antonio and Denver. Denver's a young team. They're the 2 seed. They're a young team.
I like how you see a lot of the teams that are ranked lower that are playing like the Golden State Warriors or Toronto. They're really playing hard, and they're making a run for their money. You know what I mean? They're not just gonna walked over. They're really playing their hearts out, which is awesome to see.
I'll tell you what's really surprising me, and I know we don't talk a lot about hockey because most of the names you can't even pronounce them anyway, but Tampa Bay Lightning, they're about to be eliminated. They're the number 1 seed. They scored 130 points, I think, this year.
Wow.
And they're right now losing 2-1. They're on the verge of being eliminated in the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
It is amazing.
I saw Ovechkin fought a young player, and this young player was going after him.
No. That young player
got knocked
he was
out.
19 years old. He grew up. Ovechkin was his idol. And he wanted to fight him. He's like, they were on the ice.
I fun.
And Ovechkin said, okay, let's go.
Dude,
Ovechkin hasn't gotten in a fight since 2010.
I'll give it to that 19-year-old. He threw a couple punches, but then Ovechkin, he got him right in the chin, dude. He went down hard. His hands were shaking.
But he kept going up to Ovechkin saying, you want to go? You want to go? You want to go?
I'd be
Ovechkin
nervous.
said, sure, let's go.
That's a grown man.
And I tell you what, that kid's lucky that his helmet didn't come off and he didn't crack his head against the ice.
Dude, that's a grown man. That I would have been nervous.
That's his idol.
I'm like, okay, man.
He got his butt kicked by his idol.
I would have met him after the game, be like, hey, man, you want to sign my helmet or something? I know you just knocked me out, but.
All right, guys. Well, this was a great podcast. It's just very interesting to get the insight of what goes on in the NFL and behind the scenes of what we don't get to see on a regular basis. Definitely going to have Cameron on again. We thank him. That was an amazing interview.
If you want to stay updated with us, follow us on our Facebook page. It's EverythingGoez, and then we also update our information on Twitter. It's at Goez Everything. It's a little mix up there, but That's what they gave us. But
Guys, share. Keep sharing this.
you guys are killing the last podcast.
We want to get the views up. We want to get the subscriptions up. We want to get them rolling, get them up higher and higher and higher. And we keep doing this because we like talking, and we like talking sports. And we'll keep digging and trying our best to get bigger and better guests on. The last three, like I said before, were amazing.
I get better from here, but we thank you guys, and we hope you enjoy this podcast.
Have a great night.